everybody, Allison here. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Director of Risk Tolerance at Simpler Trading as well as an options specialist. And if you have been paying attention to the markets at all, you know how volatile they have been recently. And one question I get all the time is, Allison, how do you trade in a volatile market environment? And for somebody who likes to pay attention to the technicals, right, sometimes when things are just moving, it feels like there's no real entry to try and get in. And I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. So for those of you who aren't taking advantage of this volatility or don't know how, here is a great video to show you how to do that. Up here, I have pulled up the January 20th going into the close. And for those of you who are trading that day or, go back in time on your charts and take a look at the intraday, you can see that we just really started to fall apart into the close. I mean, things were just moving to the downside. And certainly, right, if you are an intraday trader, or if you're like me and you technically don't have a big enough account to intraday trade, you use the profit recycling strategy in order to take advantage of those intraday moves without hitting that pattern day trading rule, right, without triggering it. Then you know that this volatility can be a lot of fun to trade in. But as a technical trader, you might be wondering how you get the signals, right? When we look here, this is how I like to do my intraday charts personally. As you can see, I have it up in a grid pattern. And this is my 5 and 10-minute chart, which is a lot of times what I use to take my intraday signals off of. And you can see here going into the close, I mean, this was just melting to the downside, right? We never really saw it get back even to the 10-period simple as resistance to say, hey, we're up at resistance, we're testing it, it's holding, and now might be a good time to consider jumping in this waterfall to the downside. So what we did in the Profit Recycling Mastery, let me pull this up here, is we actually took advantage of this a few different ways. So we had a first trade that we jumped into around 12:30. Now, this wasn't at this wasn't during the waterfall, but rather, there we go, but rather at the start of it. So here at the, right here, there we go, right here around this time, right, we started to see on the 5-minute chart the pattern start to break apart, right? The ATR trailing stop started to break. Momentum, of course, had started to turn bearish and remained bearish. And things weren't looking so good. So what we did is we decided to open this trade here. That was the first step of our profit recycle trade, and we opened that for a $2 cost basis. And then we set a profit target out there at $3. And you can see we sat on this trade for a little bit as the move started to occur, right? Really started to pick up around 1 o'clock. And then this thing just started to fall by 2, right? It just started to move to the downside. And so when that move occurred, that's what we are looking for on this trade. And we are able to then take a cover order and lock in, actually got a favorable fill of 305. So we locked in a $1.05 profit on this trade. And we set a bonus trade up for the next trading day, I believe, was the expiration for that one. It was Tuesday and we were trading it for Wednesday's expiration. Then, right, as you can see here, we decided to jump into another trade at about 2:33. And you might be asking yourself, Allison, this was just falling apart, right? It's like you were almost throwing a dart at the board. How could you possibly know that that would have been a good entry to take? And in volatile market environments, this is the main time I use my 1-minute chart. Now, you can notice, right, it sits over here. For those of you at Simpler Trading, you know it's usually these 3 charts that I mainly look at for my intraday moves. But the 1-minute chart can become very important in volatile market environments because when things are starting to free fall, right? Let's be real. That's what usually happens when you see the market starting to fall. That volatility picks up. It's usually to the downside, and usually it feels like it's almost free falling, right? Like there's no coming back from this move. But the 1 minute chart can give you the clues for those entries. So you can see here we set up another trade. We did this on the mic actually at 233. And right here, right on the 1 minute chart, you can see everything down here past 2 looked like it was in a free fall. But on the 1 minute chart, we had actually gone up. I know, not much of a move up, but we went up and we tested the 10 period simple as resistance. And you can see for several minutes, right, for several bars, we kept hitting that level, testing it, and failing to get above it, right? On top of that, of course, we know overall on all our time frames, the Bollinger Bands, even on the hourly chart, right, they were starting to flare open to the downside. We know we had, sorry, let me just move this back over here. We know we had bearish signals on the momentum to continue lower. We had bearish signals on the compound breakout tool on both the 5 and 10-minute chart that were giving us that bearish sentiment. So we know that whenever we were failing, getting above this 10 period simple on the 1 minute chart, that is actually a potential entry for a volatile market environment. And so we took that entry, we entered it at around 233 was when we got the fill. And that was actually right here on this bar. We bounced back up towards the 10, got the fill, reversed back down on that next minute bar, and then this continued to drag lower. We didn't get the fill yet, right? It bounced back up again, tested resistance. This would have been another entry you could have considered taking into the downside. And then it started to move lower. And as it started to move down that second time, that is when we got our cover order to fill, locked in another quick profit on this trade, set up another bonus trade for tomorrow's expiration. And it was a very nice profit recycle move to take to the downside overall. And certainly you can see, right, the market really kept going at that point. But anytime that you see a free fall in the market, that's when you should pull up a 1 minute chart. Now, I know there are some traders who constantly trade by the 1 minute chart for intraday moves. For me, that's not my cup of tea typically, but in volatile market environments, it can be the best way to determine a technical entry off of a resistance level rather than just throwing a dart at the board, hoping that on one of these bars, right, you're hitting the right target and the move is going to continue lower. Now, how do you know when to potentially start covering the trade, right? Well, the 1 minute chart will also be your first clue on when we might start to consolidate or just get a bigger pullback to where the 5 and 10-minute chart actually go back to their 10 period simple to test that as resistance. And typically, what you will see with that, we got a little bit of it into the close that day, but you'll start to see it consolidate and it will start to break above the 10. The Bollinger Bands typically flatten out, and that's your clue on the 1 minute chart that either we're going to take a little bit of a bigger breath, right, before the next downturn, allowing the 5 and 10-minute chart to go and test their resistance, or it's this starting to be a potential support level to where we could consolidate or start to bounce back up. So just this last note, once again, remember guys, in volatile market environments, the 1 minute chart can really be your friend on finding a technical entry when everything just feels like it's free falling to the downside, or maybe, bungee jumping to the upside, right? Getting that whip back to the upside as we go up and see a volatile move to test resistance. That 1 minute chart can really be your friend when it feels like all your other time frames are just nowhere near any of your main technicals of support or resistance. And the 1 minute chart in these market environments can also be your first clue on when the market might start to pause a bit more, and in turn where you might consider taking your profits off the table. So I hope this helped you guys out. You're able to see real entries for trades that I took and filled in my account based off of the intraday moves that we are watching at the time for that day. And it just shows you that even in a free fall, you can still find ways to lock in profits, right? Whether you're purely day trading, whether you're profit recycling, and still be able to take advantage of these intraday moves either way. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. As always, my fellow Jedis, may the trade be with you, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Bye.